Hello everybody, this week we're talking about budgeting, and I wanted to go over a few different options, mainly ones that I use in my regular day job, which is working in state government. So I will go over a few of those options. We're going to talk about biennial budgeting, performance-based budgeting, and zero-based budgeting. Biennial budgeting, it allows for a longer planning period. It's a 2-year process, and it is used by many state governments, for example, Arkansas and Kansas. We just recently switched to Kansas did recently switch to a biennial budgeting process. That does not mean that we don't review the budget every year. It just means that it is approved by the legislature every other year. We do go through a budgeting process every year and do slight updates, but our official budget is only approved every other year by the legislature. So that is what a biennial budgeting process is. Performance-based budget. We recently were switched to that when we went through a efficiency study. If you live in the state of Kansas, you might have heard of this. We were put through an efficiency study at the request of the legislature, and one of their recommendations was to switch to performance-based budgeting practice. And its purpose is has the purpose of implementing planning, strategizing, and prioritizing the budget process. Management develops goals and objectives which are integrated into the budget process and decision-making process, and it prioritizes budget decisions with performance measurement. What they do is assign a performance measure to every single area of the budget, and that's how they prioritize where it is in the budget, how it comes in. So if we don't have enough money for a certain area, that we look at the goals and objectives and and that is how it's prioritized now. We're just implementing this. It's kind of in its second phase. So in my area, in corrections, it's kind of it's a hard area to do performance-based budgeting because all of the area of corrections is pretty much required to provide those services. So it's kind of a hard area to give that example to. But other areas like Kansas Department of Transportation, they have to actually prioritize their classifications, their departments, and their areas in order to get their budgets approved. Zero-based budgeting. This is also something we do. Some of it, we don't do this quite as much. I did this a lot in the private sector. A lot of our expenses are already known, so we can't really go to the zero-based budgeting, but zero-based budgeting is the budget actually starts at zero and has to be built from the ground up. You add each expenditure that you expect to incur during the period to deliver those against your objectives. And a zero-based budget forces a company to examine and evaluate expenses for every period, and that then you go ahead and require that justification all the way to senior management. In the case of government, that would be the legislature. So by evaluating all expenses, that allows you to justify them all the way to senior management. The intent is to ensure that all funding decisions are continually refocused on key business initiatives and resources are allocated appropriately. So zero-based budgeting really is a good thing. You start from the ground up, you evaluate them every year or every period, and you can just start over, start fresh. You aren't building continually on bad numbers. You can start fresh. So I really do I like this process. It's a good process. that is the end of my budgeting presentation. A little bit more about what I do on a budgeting perspective. We do, like I said, we do a biannual budget. However, we are continually updating it. They ask for monthly reports. I have to constantly monitor the budget. They do look for budget savings. Even though my budget, I can't make any more money, we are allocated a certain amount of money by the legislature, and that is what I have to work with. So it's kind of like fitting a square peg into a round hole. I'm allocated, my budget each year is approximately $13 million, and I have to fit all of my salaries and all of my utilities and all of my other costs into that allocation. So my salaries, of course, have to come first, and then I fit everything else into there. And each year it gets a little bit tougher. They don't really up our allocation. It usually stays about the same, and some years it's a little bit less. So working in government budgeting is not always easy. We work with what we can. We work with taxpayer money, so we have to account for every dollar, and it is tough. So budgeting is definitely a challenge, but it is one that I very much enjoy and one that I have done for most of my career. So please, if you have any questions this week, give me a call, text, email, and I will be happy to answer any of your questions. I hope you are having a good week, and